So this little 35-foot long Prevost came in. If you notice, it's got no tag axle on it. His big complaint is a leaky rear main seal on it, which is a very expensive repair for, we got to pull the engine out, separate the engine and the trans. This is the way they have these engines in here. There's not a lot of clearance around it. So it's going to be a big, big job to do that. And it won't start with the ignition switch up front. He has to use a remote starter on a solenoid in the back to be able to get to start. So something's wrong with the starting circuit on it. And the right rear airbags are leaking down in about 20-30 minutes. So we got three big complaints to look at. But that rear main seal, that's the big one. I mean, that's $50 in parts and $5,000 to $7,000 in labor, maybe. Who knows? It's pretty involved on this one. So we're gonna take a look at it here and see what we got. Okay, so we're investigating a big oil leak that he's got here, and he's been parked for a few minutes. Everything's on the left side of the engine. Oh, what's back over there that's huge, Jonathan? What? That's coolant over there on the ground? Okay, it's dripping? Okay. So all the oil leaks here on the left side. If you look there, that frame is totally clean right there, which means that hot oil has been spraying on it. It's on the transmission too. I see some oil hanging on the oil filter up there. So I wonder if the oil filter is spraying out some oil in this area here, and that's where all these drips are coming from. Washing back. It doesn't, he thought it was the rear main seal, but there'd be a puddle on the ground about there, and there's not really anything there. I think he's gonna get lucky. That looks like engine oil, but something's definitely been spraying. So we'll get it on the pit and take a better look at it, see if we can figure out what's going on. But yeah, that's wet, way up there on the inside behind the wheel well. That is not a rear main seal. We're gonna back it out of the shop here. We're gonna put it on the pit and run it so we can confirm that the oil leak is coming from the rear main seal like the client said, and get a good look at it. And then we can also see if we can spray the underside of the airbags and see if we find a leak in the airbags out on the pit. That's what we're gonna work on there. All that oil leak on the left side. You got it. Well, this is crazy. So this has a remote run oil filter. So the engine oil filter is in front of the transmission. So remember, the engine is at the very back of the bus, and then the transmission is towards the front of the bus, and then this oil filter is even in front of that. So there's no room in the engine bay for it, so they've positioned it and mounted it way up front of the transmission. Well, it turns out that's what's leaking, is this canister oil filter is blowing back on the transmission there, and then it was dripping off the lowest point, which is where the rear main seal would be. So that's why he thought, and how can you get engine oil in front of the transmission there? It's got to be, it's at the back, so it's got to be the rear main seal. He scheduled an appointment to have the rear main seal replaced, but obviously we're not going to do that because that's not what his issue is. So luckily, the oil is blowing back from that canister onto the transmission and the engine together there, and then dripping. So it's causing a heck of an oil leak. So this is only like $100 in parts and an hour's worth of labor. So much, much better for his pocketbook. It seems pretty tight. I wouldn't go any tighter than that.
Yeah, definitely not. I think it was loose.
Well, it was a little bit loose. We tightened it. I didn't want that to just be the fix, so we replaced the filter, put a new O-ring, or there's a gasket. It's like a flat cut O-ring type thing that goes in there. So we put a new filter and O-ring in it and sealed it up, and it's not leaking anymore. But I figured that would be the best way to do it, just replace it. Well, his no start issue with the key from the front was this little solenoid, 24-volt solenoid that's in the back. Is getting power and everything. It just wasn't, the magnet wasn't clicking in there, so we replaced it. This is how he was starting it, was jumping the top and bottom posts on it. It's the one on the left there, was just jumping the posts on it and be able to get it to start. So we've replaced that solenoid, and that fixed the no start issue with the keys. So yeah, it was just a bad solenoid, and we also fixed the ground on it too. It wasn't very good, but that took care of the problem. All right, this took the most time to fix here was these airbags. There was a leak here. On the top of the airbag was leaking, the compression fitting on the copper line was leaking, and then the little valve in between his leveling system was leaking. So we had to take the tires off twice to get that to get fixed, but now we got it where it's holding air for, it sat for 5 days and stayed aired up. So we definitely have the air leaks fixed on the suspension. So he's headed home in this bus today, and he lives on the other side of Tennessee, so not too far of a trip.